This is the new TC Pride Podcast, episode 29, on location at Twin Cities Pride headquarters for Reflections on Pride 2016. Hello and welcome to the Twin Cities Pride Podcast. I'm Ryan Garza. I'm here at Twin Cities Pride headquarters in Minneapolis, talking to some of the board and staff members and some of our volunteers that help make Pride happen every year.
My name is Sean Johnson. I'm the operations coordinator at Twin Cities Pride. I've been working here since 2013, so about 3 years now. My main thing is I work with all of the vendors and sponsors on the site and before and after to kind of put the park together. We like to say that it's kind of like creating a small city in a matter of days and then tearing it down in one. I'd never actually been to Twin Cities Pride before I started working here. It never really lined up with my schedule. And so I'd been to other Prides, but to see, it wasn't until working here that I saw just how much it impacted people. Like I knew, for example, that it meant a lot to people and people enjoyed celebrating, obviously, because I do myself, but I didn't quite understand the deep emotional impact that it has on people, and all of the different stories that I hear. So we always have attendees saying, I've been coming to Twin Cities Pride for 20, 30, 40 years. And to me, that's absolutely mind-boggling because these people have this relationship with our festival and with our events that goes so much deeper than just, a party.
Yeah, I was just blown away. This was the first year that, the Twin Cities Pride podcast was covering the festival. And you're right. There were just so many people who have just such like a deep emotional connection, like a deep personal connection with the festival and with the history and tradition of it. Were there any particular experiences that you had that you'd like to share?
Well, my first time being able to be involved in the parade was this year. Normally I'm entrenched in the park when the parade is going on. But this year I was able to march with our board contingency for the Pulse nightclub memorial. And so to be a part of the parade, and which is something I hadn't experienced before, and to be a part of it not only as just a member, but as part of something so important and so necessary for the community to heal it was unlike anything I've ever experienced before. To see just the raw emotions of people knowing that, Orlando had happened just a few weeks before, and seeing their just outpouring of support in terms of money and saying thank you and we love you and all of these messages that, as someone who's always kind of behind the scenes, I never get to hear. That was a moment where I was like, wow, I really love doing what I'm doing, and it's more than just a job.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing too, and talking to Dot, is that there are so many volunteers, that make this happen. How important would you say all the volunteers and their contributions are to the overall experience, creating the overall experience of the Pride Festival?
Oh, it's so crucial. I think a lot of people who attend just think that this event happens just out of nothing, but really it's built completely on the backs of volunteers, and volunteers who spend all year working for Twin Cities Pride doing things, giving their own time and energy, or people who, come for the weekend, and whether it's helping with the parade or helping with security or helping with checking vendors in. It's this huge infrastructure that is built entirely of volunteers, which I think is pretty unique for a lot of events, because from my knowledge, most events run on paid staff, but since ours is almost entirely volunteer, I think that's just one more thing that makes it this really special and emotional thing, and not just a party or an event.
And then lastly, I guess, what is there anything particular about the Minneapolis, the Twin Cities, Pride community or organization that maybe people outside of the Twin Cities that aren't familiar with how we do Pride here? Is there anything that you would like people to know about the Twin Cities, GLBTQ community or Pride as an organization?
Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that has struck me the most about the community here in Minneapolis, or the Twin Cities rather, is that it seems to be a lot more integrated, whereas many other communities that I've heard about or read about or experienced they're a lot more stratified. And I think Pride is a good example of that, where it seems to be that people really, they get together and they meld, and there aren't, obviously there are a lot of different communities within the LGBTQ community, but once Pride is here, that just sort of seems to really dissolve.
Is there anything you'd like to say to maybe all of the either people that attended or any, the volunteers that helped out this year?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, thank all of you so much. We can't do this without you. There's so much, I think, obviously you're doing it for your own reasons, but we really can't state how much we need you and appreciate you, because you do so much more than I think you do. You're not just, you're not just helping the parade, or you're not just checking people in, or you're not just patrolling the park. You're really bringing a community together and making an event happen that wouldn't be able to exist without you.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time, Sean. And we look forward to talking to you again soon. And happy Pride.
Awesome. Happy Pride. Thank you.
My name is Kurt Wiger, and I am a volunteer board member with Twin City Pride. I've been part of the board for about a year and a half, and this was my second Pride as a board member. The Pride that I most remember was 1991. I have been out since the late 80s, early 90s, and I also have two brothers that are both gay. So I remember that first Pride of 1991, jumping in and marching in the parade and just feeling like I stood taller. I had everything to be proud about, and seeing it grow. And then last year with the gay marriage and approval by the Supreme Court. And then this year was a little worried because Orlando had just happened. And for people who are gay, for me growing up and coming out, a gay bar was the safest haven you could go. You were accepted. It was where you could go and you could make new friends. You could dance. You could just have fun. And suddenly that was invaded. And so I know my friends who are allies would ask me, why are people so crushed by this? And it's because our safe place has been. And so I was a little fearful because we had been hearing a little bit that people were a little worried that if they were going to be safe at Pride. And we actually, I think, had more people come out to Pride, to participate in Pride, because there's a call for all of us. This has to end. We have to stand together. We have to unify. We're also looking at how do we include everybody? How do we make a completely inclusive Pride for whether it's race, whether it's ethnicity, that everybody is included and everybody is treated with respect and welcomed. And that's the part for me that makes Pride the best.
Looking back on this year's Pride, do you have like maybe a quick story or maybe a reflection, something significant about this year's Pride that you'd like to share, now that a little bit of time has passed since the festival concluded?
Well, the first piece that I'd like to share is just about Twin City Pride, that there is one full-time staff member and one part-time staff member, everything else on bringing all of our events together. And because Twin City Pride event, the last weekend of June, is our largest fundraising event. It's a place to come and celebrate, but we also raise a lot of money that goes to help support, like some of our award winners this year, Out and Sober, or Transforming Families, which are very small nonprofits that have these great causes that are growing. So how do we as Twin City Pride support that? I think for me, this year with Pride was the fact that more people came out. There seemed to be more of a team, more of a family. I'm not quite sure. I'm not catching the right word right now, but there was a unity. There was something that was bringing us all together that brought more passion, brought more drive to change. And I think this year we have a lot more work to do than just gay marriage.
Yeah, I know I heard over and over again from talking to so many people that I had to be here. I had to find a way to be here because of the tragedy and the other things that, like you said, brought people together. This year. So you said you certainly sensed that.
Yes, absolutely. And it's also an opportunity this year. It's also, we were coming together as this unified force, but it's also an opportunity where we can celebrate and we can play and we can have fun. That's so important because everybody has these struggles that we still continue to be on, whether it's discrimination at work, whether It's somebody that doesn't really understand. And in our political arena right now, we're all being threatened again. And so how do we continue to come together? And so an event that brings approximately 400,000 people in is pretty cool. There's always logistical challenges. There's something that changes at the last minute, or somebody's plane for entertainment isn't coming in quite right, or there's always the challenge of that. But we have this incredible group of volunteers that have been involved with Pride. I think for me as a new board member, the one piece that has impressed me most about Pride is the passion and commitment from the volunteers on the operations that do all of the operations, the security, plan for all of the entertainment, put this whole thing together, are just the most incredible people ever. And to be a part of that team I have a lot of pride in that.
Thank you. And part of doing this, coming down and talking to the board members and staff members was just kind of getting to know people on a personal level. And I noticed that for a long time, you've been involved in various service-minded organizations. So like just personally, like on a personal level, like what is it about Kurt that makes you feel that it's so important to be involved in community-minded organizations?
Yeah, I have a real passion about diversity and inclusion, and it's grown. My work is started with nonprofit. I still work for a nonprofit. I work for a healthcare agency. And I'm not really sure how I got there. It just is something that I started to recognize. And as I started learning more, I kept being pulled in, and I want to make a difference. I want to leave knowing that the struggle that I had as a kid growing up in the early 60s, and being gay and not being able to share anything about it and being hidden away, that's different. We have to make. And my generation made a difference. The generation now will make a difference. And so, we just need to live out open and proud of who we are.
And like you said too, and like I heard over and over as well, like there's always work to do, right?
Always. Because you think you have it, you think you've made, and then all of a sudden you go back a step. You take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and you keep moving forward. And so when you think you have it, you can't rest because it's going to come back. So you just keep working to improve, to celebrate, and to make lives better.
Belstler, I'm the Executive Director of Twin Cities Pride. I have the honor of being the Executive Director of Twin Cities Pride, working with a fabulous volunteer staff and a board of directors and actually one paid staff person.
So something that people might not know about you is that you were recognized in Lavender Magazine for Lavender Community Award. And in the write-up, they had said that DOT strives to create a safe space for people to come together, not only to celebrate, but to tell stories, embrace the community's history, and expose the larger community to issues concerning the LGBT community. Now, in covering the festival for the podcast, at the entire festival, I saw examples of every one of those things. First of all, how did you do it? And what are some challenges in accomplishing all of that?
There are so many different subgroups of the LGBTQ community, and we really try to make sure that we're hitting all of the groups and making sure that everyone feels comfortable and is able to kind of tell their story and share the space with each other. It helps to have a lot of diverse voices coming to Pride and letting us know where we should be.
They also said that you were saying that your inspiration comes from the volunteers who support Twin Cities Pride, that in addition to their own day jobs, they volunteer countless hours to Pride, often using their own paid time off, or rescheduling their hours over Pride Week to create the celebrations. How important are the board members and the staff members who, in case people don't realize, actually are volunteers, right? They're like full-time staff, but like full-time volunteers, basically. How important are those people and all the countless volunteers?
Our volunteer staff I'm just in awe of them all the time. They put their heart and soul into Pride. They live to create Pride for everybody, for the community. We couldn't do Pride without them, as it is in its form right now. Over the weekend, we have about 300 event volunteers that show up to help the parade or the info booths or walk around with the safety team. yeah, we're definitely a volunteer-driven organization.
So I imagine that there's no way that you could have personally like spoken with every single one of them, right? I mean, I saw they were running all over the place, like, you know, doing all the magic behind the scenes to make Pride happen. So, but I imagine every single one of maybe their smaller contributions as compared to, you know, like a full-time staff member, every single one of those contributions is important to making sure that Pride goes off the way it does, right?
Absolutely. Everyone has a role and they do it really well. Really, we're all coming together to create this space for everyone.
And so if your Pride experience is anything like mine, and for me, it was a blur of celebrations and like just meeting awesome people and fireworks and puppies and rainbows and all kinds of craziness. You know, as well as, you know, there were some somber moments. There was some tragedy. I mean, it was a really intense experience. Looking back now, are there any particular memories of Pride, the festival, which is pretty much all of June now, right? I mean, are there any particular memories that you have from the festival, or just any stories you want to share about just something you remember about Pride?
So when you mentioned the somber moments, the most emotional that I've really ever been at Pride was during the Remember Orlando tribute in the parade. Before that, you know, June 12th was 2 weeks before the Pride Parade, and I didn't let myself think about it because we had so much planning and so much stuff coming on. When we sat in front of the grandstand listening to the names and the ages of all of the people who were killed, it was very, very emotional. And I'm so glad that we were able to follow it up with the Aztec dancers and the other Latin groups, and to kind of lift people after that really sad moment.
Thank you. I mean, and one of the things that you said too, that was important to you, was creating that safe space, right? So I imagine there were probably some logistical challenges in making sure that Twin Cities Pride as an organization provided that safe space for people to come and celebrate. There were some challenges involved with that, right?
For sure, especially this year, you know, the community in general was looking for Pride to be more secure than normal. We always have had a security plan in place. We're a large event, we have to. But most of our security has been behind the scenes, and this year we kind of increased the visibility a little bit, and which for some people, it made them really comfortable. But for our queer and trans people of color, it was not comfortable. So we have some challenges in trying to balance, you know, where can we be? You know, how can we be both?
And so the last thing that I wanted to say was that, you know, first of all, thank you very much for all the access and support that you showed for the Twin Cities Pride podcast project. I mean, it was an amazing experience on every level, just talking to so many people from, like you said, there's so many different groups, there's so many different individuals with so many amazing stories, to be up close and personal to all of that, and to help, you know, capture and document that for Twin Cities Pride was truly an honor. So thank you very much for allowing me to contribute in that way. Now, the whole reason that we're doing this was because of the effort to preserve the history and heritage of Twin Cities Pride. So going forward, like, how important is that, in your opinion, to preserve the history and tradition of Twin Cities Pride as an organization and the greater LGBTQ community? So
really, commemorating our diverse heritage is right up there in our mission. It's like the first thing. And it is so important. I think that people, as more rights are afforded to the LGBTQ community, people kind of forget about all of the challenges that the community has lived through, the individuals have lived through, and to capture those stories is just so important for us going forward. Well, thank you very much again for your time, Dot. And is there anything else that you'd like to say to like the LGBT community, or just like Twin Cities Pride community, or the people that came to the festival, or just kind of anything else you'd like to include? You know, my favorite saying is Happy Pride. Mine too. I said it a few times this year. Thank you very much, Dot, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks so much. The TC Pride Podcast has been a production of Podletter Media and Twin Cities Pride. Subscribe now on iTunes or Google Play, and submit your first Pride story at myfirstpride.org.